They always said I was lucky to live with my son, that I should be grateful. Grateful that I had a roof over my head, grateful I wasn't alone, grateful I got to see my granddaughter grow up. But no one ever mentioned the years I worked 2 night shifts back to back just so Thomas could eat meat more than once a week. No one asked how it felt to spend my entire adult life making sure someone else had a future while mine quietly slipped into the background. They all thought I had it easy. That's the thing about being the quiet one. You become the wallpaper in your own life, until the day you stop blending in and suddenly everyone remembers you were there the whole time. I never had expensive hobbies. No book clubs, no cruises, no shopping sprees. The one thing I did for myself, just one, was buy a $5 scratch ticket every Tuesday. Always from the same gas station 2 blocks down. Always Wild Sevens. The cashier, a young man named Marcus, called me Miss Holloway, like I was someone that still mattered. That little moment, that soft click of the coin against the card, made me feel like I still had a choice in a world that had stopped asking for my opinion a long time ago. After my husband died, heart attack, middle of a grocery store parking lot, gone before the paramedics arrived, I didn't fall apart. There was no time. Thomas was 12. He still had a future, and I was going to make damn sure it didn't disappear just because his father did. I picked up extra shifts at the hospital, took on weekends, holidays, back-to-back nights. There were times I'd come home so tired I couldn't feel my own legs, but I'd still cook breakfast before sending him off to school. He never knew how close we came to losing the house. He never asked. Maybe I made it look too easy. I didn't date again. People said I should, but the idea of trying to explain my life to someone new made me feel older than I already did. Besides, my whole world was already full. With Thomas, with work, with small routines that made me feel steady. When he got into community college, I cried in the break room. When he got his first job in marketing, I gave him my mother's watch. When he got married, I emptied my savings account, over $40,000, to help him and Miranda make the down payment on their first home. I didn't even tell anyone, just transferred the money and said it was a gift. They never asked where it came from. They assumed I had help. I didn't. Living with them wasn't part of the plan. But when I slipped on the stairs at work and fractured my hip, Thomas suggested I move in, just until I got back on my feet. That was 6 years ago. At first, it felt good, being around Sophie, helping cook dinner, tending the little herb garden out back. I did laundry, packed lunches, even walked Sophie to school so Thomas and Miranda could sleep in. I told myself this was family. This was how we took care of each other. But slowly, things changed. Miranda started leaving me off family texts. I'd find out about events 2 days after they happened. My favorite mug disappeared, replaced with a novelty one that read, Queen of Complaints. They started locking the master bedroom. No reason, just started. The worst part? It wasn't anything loud. It was the quiet ways they moved me out of their story. 1 inch at a time. I became her, even in my own house. I offered to make dinner, and Miranda would say, "We've got it, Clara." I tried to help Sophie with her homework, but Thomas said, "She has a tutor now." I wasn't asked. I was informed. A slow, daily erasure. Until one day I realized I didn't have a key to the house I helped pay for. There was no big fight, no slammed doors, just 1,000 paper cuts over time. The way Miranda would rearrange the fridge so I couldn't find my yogurt. The way Thomas laughed when she called my knitting old lady nesting. The way Sophie stopped calling me grandma and started saying Clara, like a teacher correcting her. But still, I stayed. Because that's what mothers do. We stay. We tell ourselves it's just a phase, just stress, just modern parenting. We hang on to the little things, the smell of Sophie's shampoo, the way she used to curl into my side during thunderstorms, the early mornings when I made pancakes shaped like hearts. I held on to all of it like a rosary, a list of reasons why I still mattered. That Tuesday morning, I bought my scratch ticket like always, walked back slowly in the crisp morning air, the kind that smells like memory. I folded the ticket into my wallet, made a mental note to scratch it after lunch, but somewhere between loading the dishwasher and helping Sophie find her gym shoes, I must have left the copy on the kitchen table. That's all it took. They saw it, scratched it, and everything changed. But that's not today's story. Today is still the before. The part where a mother gives and gives until she starts to believe that giving is the only reason she exists, where even the smallest joy, a scratch ticket, is called selfish, where being quiet, being helpful, being the backbone is somehow not enough. You see, this isn't just a lottery story. It's a revenge story written in the ink of silence, patience, and receipts, and they don't even see it coming yet. It started with a raised eyebrow. Miranda had come home early from work. I was standing at the counter, my coin already halfway across the scratch ticket I'd forgotten about all morning. Just a little something to break up the routine. She didn't say a word, just stared at the ticket in my hand like I was holding a cigarette in front of a church. I finished scratching the last panel, saw nothing remarkable, and folded it up like always. But that look, that sharp, assessing look, I felt it long after I put the ticket away. The next morning, that ticket, the very same one I'd scratched and signed as I always did, was gone. My wallet had been moved, not dramatically, just enough to notice if you were the one who placed it there. 3 days later, Thomas walked into the kitchen grinning like a teenager who just got his first car. Miranda followed close behind, holding her phone, cheeks flushed, lips pressed together like she couldn't contain herself. "We need to talk," Thomas said, and I thought it might be about dinner, or Sophie's schedule, or maybe that I'd left the back porch light on again. But no. "We won," he said. "Won what?" "The lottery," Miranda chimed in. 17 million. I blinked, felt the floor shift beneath me. "You played?" Thomas laughed, but not kindly. "You left a ticket on the table. It was just sitting there, so we scratched it, and it hit." It took me a second to remember which ticket. The Tuesday one. The one I bought at the gas station. The one I scratched while waiting for the coffee to finish brewing. The one I always signed, first thing, always. I swallowed. I think that ticket was mine. Thomas's smile dropped a fraction. "What?" "I bought it Tuesday. Wild Sevens. Same place as always. I signed it." Miranda's voice cut in, smooth and slicing. "We found it, unsigned, on our kitchen table. I sign all my tickets with a blue pen, backside." Thomas scoffed. "Mom, let's not make this weird." Miranda stepped closer. "Look, it's exciting for all of us. But the truth is, you live here. You don't pay rent. You don't contribute to bills. You don't really have your own money. It was found here, in our home." In our home. That phrase rang in my ears like a slap. I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again. "I buy my tickets with cash. I have my own jar. It's grocery money, yes, but..." Thomas cut me off. "We put that money in there. We feed you. We keep this roof over your head." That's when I knew. They weren't just taking the money. They were rewriting the story. I felt the burn of humiliation creep up my neck. But I also felt something colder, cleaner, a kind of clarity I hadn't known I still had. "I just want to see the ticket," I said quietly. "The one you found." Miranda gave a tight smile. "It's already with the attorney. We're claiming it officially. There's paperwork, it's done." I nodded, walked to the sink, rinsed my teacup. Behind me, Thomas sighed. "Don't make this a thing. We're trying to do the right thing here." I dried the cup slowly. The cloth shook a little in my hands. That night, they toasted. Champagne, new bottle, laughter spilling down the hallway like it had been waiting years to escape. I stayed in my room, knit the same row 5 times without finishing it. The next day, the locks were changed. I came back from the market, arms full of produce, only to find my key no longer fit the door. I knocked. Miranda answered, hair curled, nails done. "Oh, right," she said. "We forgot to tell you, we had the locks updated for security." I stood on the porch, stunned. "My things are inside." "We put them on the porch, by the garage." My bags, my coat, my knitting basket, the photo of my late husband in a plastic grocery sack, like leftover Tupperware. I have nowhere to go. Thomas appeared behind her. "It's just for a little while, Mom, until we get everything sorted out. You need space. We need space." That word again, space. as if love had a square footage limit. Have you ever been told you need space by someone you once gave your whole life to? If this part of the story feels familiar, if you've ever been treated like a guest in the house you helped build, just know you're not alone. Drop A in the comments if you've been there. I read every one. I didn't fight. I didn't scream. I just picked up my bags, one by one, and walked to the curb. No ride, no goodbye from Sophie, no apology, just a quiet porch, a closed door, and the sound of laughter floating through the walls of a house I once called home. I sat on the bus stop bench for over an hour before deciding where to go. I remembered the library, always warm, always open. No judgment, no questions. I walked the 4 blocks, every step echoing a new kind of silence. Not the kind I'd known for years, the one filled with biting glances and dismissive smiles, but a silence I chose. A silence that was starting to feel like power. They thought they had taken everything from me. They thought they could erase me like a receipt they no longer needed. But what they didn't know was that I had receipts of my own, and I hadn't even played my hand yet. The library smelled like dust, and something familiar I couldn't name, maybe old hope, or tired paper, or quiet. I sat in the corner by the outlet with my coat folded over my knees, my back to the wall like I was trying to disappear just a little less quickly. No one looked at me like I didn't belong. No one asked questions, and maybe that, more than anything, made me feel human again. I didn't sleep much that first night. I stayed at a tiny roadside motel 2 blocks from the library, one of those cash-only places where the lights flicker and the blankets feel like sandpaper. The front desk clerk didn't even ask why a 74-year-old woman with 2 plastic bags and a knitting basket was checking in with no reservation. He just handed me the key and nodded. Room 6 smelled like lemon cleaner and loneliness. I laid on that thin mattress staring at the ceiling, wondering what the hell had happened. Not just in the last 48 hours, but over the last few years. When did I stop being Thomas's mother and start being a problem? When did my place in their life shift from family to inconvenience? What was the exact moment they looked at me and no longer saw value? I couldn't find the answer. I could only remember flashes, little moments I'd brushed off at the time. Miranda sighing every time I walked into the room. Thomas talking about the house like I wasn't even part of it. Sophie once asking, "Grandma, why do you always eat last?" Because that's what you do when you love people more than they'll ever understand. You go last. You go without. You go quiet. But in the stillness of that cold motel room, something started to shift inside me. A quiet current, slow but certain. I wasn't angry, not yet, but I was done pretending I was invisible, because I remembered something they didn't. I still had the ticket, the real one, not the copy they found, not the unsigned one left on the kitchen table, the original. The one I signed, like I always did right after I bought it, my name on the back, blue pen, my handwriting. I reached into my knitting bag and pulled out the envelope. The edges were soft from being handled too many times. I opened it carefully. There it was, still smooth, still whole. I looked at it like it was something sacred, because maybe it was. I traced my name with my fingertip, Clara J. Holloway. And for the first time in days, I felt solid again. Like I had proof that I was still real. The next morning, I walked to the gas station. Marcus was behind the counter again, sleeves rolled up, tired eyes, the same half smile he always gave me. "Miss Holloway," he said, "didn't see you last week. I had a rough couple of days." He nodded slowly. "Everything all right?" "Not really," I said, "but I'm working on it." I asked if they still had the security footage from Tuesday morning. He hesitated, made a quick call, then printed me a still from the video. It was me standing at the counter, wallet in hand, handing over the $5 bill. You could see the clerk, the timestamp, the register. I didn't need more. I had the photo. I had the ticket. I had the truth. I returned to the library and opened their public computer. It took 15 minutes to type the email. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I couldn't stop shaking. I attached the photo, a scan of the ticket, my ID, and a quiet message. I believe this ticket was claimed by someone else in error. I am the purchaser. I have proof." 2 hours later, the Nevada State Lottery replied, "Your claim has been logged. Based on preliminary documentation, the ticket appears valid. Please await formal review. Do not discard the original." I printed the email, folded it, and tucked it into my cardigan pocket like it was armor. I didn't cry. I didn't cheer. I just sat back and breathed. They thought they had taken everything from me. They thought I'd go quietly into the night with my bags and my broken heart. But what they didn't understand was that I'd spent my whole life being quiet. This wasn't new. What was new? I wasn't going to disappear this time. That night, I walked past the house. The porch lights were on, music playing, laughter, another delivery truck out front, flat screen TV bigger than the last one. Miranda stood at the door in her silk robe, barefoot, sipping wine. I didn't stop. I didn't wave. I just kept walking. Because now I knew something they didn't. They were celebrating nothing. They were building a castle on sand, and I held the tide in my hand. There's a strange kind of power in paperwork. We don't think of it that way until the day someone tries to erase you, and suddenly a signature becomes a sword. The morning after I sent my email to the Nevada State Lottery, I walked back to the library and sat by the same window where the sun warmed the floor in streaks. I didn't tell anyone, didn't call the hotline again, just waited. By noon, the response came. "Ms. Clara J. Holloway, thank you for your documentation. Your claim has been logged. Based on preliminary verification, the ticket is valid and attached to your name. Please await formal review. Do not discard the original." I read it 3 times. I read it like I used to read bedtime stories to Thomas, slowly and with all the right pauses, because some words need to be absorbed more than once before you believe them. The ticket is valid, attached to your name. That was all I needed. I printed the email and folded it neatly, slid it into my cardigan pocket like a secret only I deserved to carry. Outside, the world looked the same. Cars passed, kids screamed, someone watered roses down the street. But for me, something enormous had shifted. I didn't feel triumphant. Not yet. But I felt still. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, maybe years. The next few days, I lived in limbo. The motel room started to feel like a waiting room for a better life, just long enough to keep breathing, but never quite enough to sleep well. I used the coin from my last scratch ticket to pay for the laundromat, ate saltines and canned soup, and reminded myself that this slowness, this pause, was not failure. It was transition. While Thomas and Miranda were probably calling lawyers, planning vacation homes, looking at luxury cars, I was gathering paper, not rage, not arguments, just receipts, literal and emotional. On the 4th day, I received another email. Your identity has been verified. The ticket is officially registered under your name. You are eligible to claim the full amount as the rightful winner. Please visit our Carson City office to initiate processing. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding since the day they changed the locks. It felt like exhaling a lifetime of being overlooked. I chose the senior anonymity clause, which allowed older claimants to stay private in the event of potential family exploitation. I didn't want the press, didn't want to be a headline. I just wanted my name to be on the right line where it always should have been. The Lottery Commission was kind, professional, gentle even, like they'd seen this before. A woman who gave too much for too long, finally holding something that couldn't be argued away. They handed me a packet, an appointment card, a list of financial advisors I could contact. One woman even squeezed my hand. "We're glad the truth found its way," she said. So was I. I didn't tell Thomas or Miranda. I didn't have to, because I knew the silence I left behind would start to talk on its own. Sure enough, it didn't take long. 3 days later, I checked my old flip phone. 6 missed calls, 2 voicemails, one from Thomas. "Mom, hey, listen, we might have made a mistake. The lottery folks are saying there's some kind of issue. We just want to talk. Can we talk?" Then Miranda, syrupy and tight. "Clara, we just need to clarify a few things. This could all be fixed. We're family. Think of Sophie. They weren't reaching out to apologize. They were reaching out because they'd finally realized I wasn't gone. I was just quiet. And in that quiet, I had reclaimed everything. I didn't call back. I didn't need to, because they were discovering the truth the hard way. The ticket had been claimed by the person who signed it, and their story no longer made sense to anyone, including the lottery commission. I imagined their faces when the staff politely told them that ticket was never yours. The house they had filled with champagne and new furniture now echoed with silence of a different kind, the kind that comes when you can't lie your way out anymore. I kept to myself. I stayed at the little studio I had found through a retired librarian who offered the back unit behind her house. It had a tiny stove, a crooked window, and a porch where I could drink tea in the morning and water the herbs I planted in chipped coffee mugs. It was mine. No one rolled their eyes when I boiled pasta. No one mocked my old sweater. No one sighed when I spoke. In that little home, I discovered a truth much deeper than the one printed on a lottery ticket. They hadn't stolen my money. They had just shown me who they really were. And that was the real loss, not mine. Theirs. Because I could build again. But they had burned their bridge without knowing I still held the blueprints. There's something holy about starting over when no one's watching. The little house I moved into wasn't anything special. White siding, 2 windows in the front, a squeaky porch step that warned of visitors. But it was quiet. The rent was paid in full, anonymously, through the lottery trust. No mortgage, no roommate, no condescending smiles asking if I remembered to turn off the stove. It didn't look like much to anyone else, but to me, it was the first place I'd lived in decades that didn't carry the weight of someone else's disappointment. I painted the kitchen cabinet soft green. I bought a kettle that whistled. I hung one photo on the living room wall, a still frame from the gas station camera handing over a $5 bill the moment my new life began. It wasn't flattering. I looked tired, wrinkled, hair pulled back in a sloppy bun, but my back was straight. My eyes were clear. I looked like someone who had remembered herself. The frame sat above a little shelf where I placed a small wooden sign I made with a cheap craft kit from the dollar store. It read, "They toasted their luck. I cashed the truth." I didn't need anyone to see it but me. The world outside kept turning. Thomas and Miranda, I imagined, were still scrambling. Their social media accounts had gone quiet. The neighbors were talking. Someone had posted a thread online titled, "This is what happens when you steal from your own mother." I didn't reply. I didn't like or comment. I didn't even scroll through it. Because by then, I was already somewhere else, mentally, spiritually, and physically. The thing about a quiet life is, it gives you time to feel again. Not just the grief, but the small joys too. I started baking again. Just for myself. Blueberry muffins, lemon scones, one batch of oatmeal cookies that burned because I got caught up reading a mystery novel in the chair by the window. I planted herbs by the kitchen sill, basil, rosemary, mint. I talked to them some mornings while watering, like they were old friends just checking in. On Wednesdays, I went back to the library, not to hide, but to help. Angela, the head librarian, asked if I could assist with the senior reading program. I said yes before she finished the sentence. Every Wednesday at 10 a.m., I sat in a circle of folding chairs with other women like me. Some widowed, some divorced, some just done. We traded stories, shared recipes, passed around old photos of grandkids. No one asked about the lottery. No one mentioned Thomas, but they listened when I spoke, and that alone was wealth. One afternoon, I ran into a woman at the grocery store who used to attend the same church as I did years ago. She looked at me with a surprised smile. "Clara Holloway?" she said, squinting. I smiled back. "That's me." She paused. "You look good. Peaceful." That word stayed with me the whole walk home. Peaceful. Not lucky. Not bitter. Not even strong. Just peaceful. I realized that's what I'd been building without even knowing it. Not revenge. Not retribution. Peace. The kind that comes when you no longer feel the need to explain yourself to people who never bothered to ask in the first place. I never went back to Thomas and Miranda's house, not even to see if the for sale sign was still up. Not even when curiosity gnawed at me. I didn't need to know what happened next, because I already knew the important part. They could no longer rewrite me out of the story. I had written myself back in without shouting, without begging, just with quiet truth. A few weeks later, I got a letter, handwritten, no return address, just my name in that same uneven pen I'd once seen scribbled across school permission slips and birthday cards. It was Thomas. He didn't apologize, not directly. He said he had been thinking a lot, that he let things get out of hand, that Miranda got carried away, but he should have stopped her. He said he missed me, that Sophie missed me, that maybe we could talk. He ended it with, "I'm not asking for money, just maybe a second chance. For Sophie, if not for me." I folded the letter once, then twice, stared at it for a while. I didn't cry. I didn't write back. Not because I hated him. I didn't. Not anymore. But because I'd spent too many years hoping for a version of him that didn't exist. And now I had something better than reconciliation. I had my own life. I sat at my little kitchen table and pulled out a blank note card, one of the ones with a sunflower on the front. I wrote one sentence. "The home I built wasn't made of walls. It was made of memory, and it doesn't need repairing." I mailed it to their last known address. Then I made tea, sat on my porch, and listened to the sound of a life that no longer needed noise to prove it existed. The maple tree outside my new house started turning early that year. September had barely arrived, but the leaves were already flickering gold at the edges like they couldn't wait to let go. I knew the feeling. It had been just over 3 months since I claimed the ticket. 3 months since I heard the quiet click of a door closing behind me for the last time. Not slammed, not dramatic, just final. I never looked back, not once. I spent those months doing things that seemed small from the outside, but were monumental for someone like me, someone who had spent decades being folded up and put away like seasonal linen. I picked out a new pair of reading glasses, learned how to make sourdough from scratch, started volunteering at the library's senior book swap. I drank my morning tea by the window and never once got interrupted by someone asking where their phone charger was or rolling their eyes because I left a sponge in the sink. Peace didn't arrive all at once. It came in layers, like soft cotton sheets you didn't realize you were missing until you slipped under them and felt warm for the first time in a long time. One morning, Angela at the library handed me a newspaper clipping. It was from a local lifestyle blog, the kind that usually covered bake sales and pumpkin patches. The headline read, "The Quiet Winner, Truth, Family, and a Lottery Ticket." There was no name, just a story. A woman in her 70s, displaced, dismissed, then discovered. It mentioned the rightful claim, the legal verification, the silent donation to the town library fund. It never once said revenge or vindication. It said grace. I folded it carefully and placed it in the back of the photo frame on my wall, right behind the picture of me at the gas station, caught mid-transaction. You could barely tell it was me, but I knew, and that was enough. I wasn't the kind of woman who needed the world to clap. I just needed the noise to stop. Eventually, it did. The neighborhood where Thomas and Miranda used to live went quiet too. Someone told me their house sold fast. Cash buyer, out-of-state plates. No forwarding address. I didn't ask for more. I heard Miranda had to step down from her parent committee at Sophie's school. Thomas lost his job a few weeks after the lottery issued their official public record. Something about breach of integrity in the workplace. I imagine they tried to start over somewhere, tell their version of the story to new neighbors, new friends. Maybe they even believed it. That's fine. Let them. But here's the thing. The internet doesn't forget, and neither do mothers. Especially the quiet ones. I didn't want revenge. That's not what this was. I wanted the truth to stand where I couldn't. That was enough. And in a way, I never expected, the world gave something back. Not just money, but respect. People stopped looking through me and started looking at me, not because I demanded it, but because I existed fully again. I could breathe again. I could be again. One Saturday, I saw Sophie. She was with a group of kids at the library for a school field trip. She had grown taller. Her hair was longer, and she had a little silver clip holding it off her face, the same kind I used to buy for her when she was 5. She didn't see me, but I saw her. She stood in the poetry aisle, head tilted, mouthing the words to herself. I wanted to say her name. I wanted to walk over and tuck her hair behind her ear like I used to, but I didn't. Because love, the real kind, doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it waits. And if she ever comes looking for me, I'll still be here. There's a white rose bush growing on the side of my house now. I planted it with my bare hands the week I moved in. My late husband used to say white roses were the bravest. They bloomed without asking for attention, without needing to be the brightest in the garden. They just were. I tend to them every morning, clip back the leaves, talk to them softly. They remind me of something I wish someone had told me sooner. Survival is not just about getting through the storm. It's about planting something new once the sky clears. The plaque beneath my photo still says the same thing. They toasted their luck. I cashed the truth. And that truth? It doesn't need a microphone. It only needs one listener, the person you used to be, the one who gave everything, the one who almost disappeared, the one who now sits quietly in her own kitchen, stirring her tea and smiling. Because sometimes the loudest victory is the life you build after they stop watching. Have you ever rebuilt quietly? Not for revenge, but for your own peace. If this story spoke to something deep in you, share a memory, a moment, or just say, "I'm still here," in the comments. Sometimes we heal in silence. But today, if you feel like it, let us hear your voice. Grandma True Stories is listening.